Hello, and welcome back to Verbose Mode by DuxCare at Shift 2025, coming to you live from Zadar, Croatia. My next guest in an absolutely awesome t-shirt is Erick Wendel. Welcome, Erick.
Thank you so much.
And Erick, you delivered a talk about a very confrontational topic of self-hosting, right? So what is the premise?
Perfect. So basically, I have a training company, and for over 5 years right now, and I was hiring a lot of SaaS platforms. But I was like, well, I should focus in the business. So I won't develop any tool. I'm just gonna use all of them because I need to sell and I need to test my business. However, when I was looking at the bill at the end of the month, I was like, oh my God, all this money that I came from my campaign, I'm spending, paying those debts, and something must be changed here. So I started looking, well, there are a lot of open source tools that I can use that could replace those SaaS tools. So I said, well, I'm gonna start from the beginning. For all events I have, for subscriptions, users progress, certificates, all of that, I had an integration platform that would send emails, or it's like just receive a webhook from one side and integrate with other platforms. Must be like emails, generating the platform access for the student, and so on and so forth. So I thought, well, this could be a very good point to start. So I started replacing by N8N, and then I replaced it by Node-RED. And with this, I was able to save like $100 a month. Wasn't that bad, but I was like, wow, there's space here, and it's not so hard as people usually tell me. When you are doing self-hosted, people say, well, you have to take care. You need someone to be there 24 hours per day to be looking at. But for me, it seems like I've been using Kubernetes with all open source tools for monitoring, generating alerts, and with this I was able to save a lot of money. And not just for that, the biggest cost I had for the whole company was the automation marketing platform. So this cost me like 8,000 euros a year, and I replaced this by Mautic, and I was able to cut all this cost. My God, I was like, well, now I can breathe better with the business, and I can get this money and invest back in the business. So for me, it's an ongoing process of cutting all the SaaS platforms, installing open sources, and for sure, teaching other people how can they use it on my YouTube platform. And for me, it's been like challenging sometimes, but for me, it's all worth it for now.
So here is what I hear. First, it will probably work for some kind of businesses, but not others.
Mm-hmm.
Second, you have the knowledge that is required. Again, a lot of it by the nature of your business. You are teaching Kubernetes, so you know Kubernetes, right? So that's like second. And third, it might make sense for some services which are very expensive and have alternatives which might be self-hosting, but maybe not for others.
Exactly. The same point for Infobip. Infobip said they were using Kubernetes as a service, and then they said, well, we're gonna go back to on-prem, we're gonna install Kubernetes, which for me is insane. It's crazy hard to manage, create modules, but for them what makes sense, so they could automate and save money. In the end, for me, I was feeling like this when I started the business. Well, I'm a software developer. Why don't I have any product, any JavaScript code, or sometimes I'm teaching my students how they can improve performance, how they can use the best practices, but I wasn't practicing it. So I said, well, I have this knowledge. I was actually the one in Brazil hired by Microsoft to build their first Kubernetes course, but I never actually got to use on my own company. So I was like, well, let's see if in a week I can set up everything I need from the infrastructure point of view, and I was able to do it. However, I got a lot of troubles, like I crashed applications so many times, but in the end, it's pretty stable. It's been like almost 2 years right now running there, and I don't even touch it. Any problem I have, I receive the message on my Discord channel, and Kubernetes is so amazing that it self-heals. So when I have some crash, I say, well, it crashed, but now it's on again. So it's wonderful, yeah.
Yeah, okay, no, again, that makes sense. And especially, I think it also was a very good exercise for you as a trainer.
Exactly.
You found a lot of material to add to your training based on hands-on experience. So that was a win-win. You actually finally had an opportunity to do something in production.
Exactly.
Right, yeah.
And for me, like, as a developer, I stopped feeling like I'm just teaching and not practicing what I teach, right? So in the same way, it's always a win-win, because I'm doing something on the battlefield and I can record videos from the lessons I got from there. But still, if you're wondering, well, what size a company should come to self-hosted? And I think for me was when it started, I started feeling the pain. Well, the bills are just increasing every month. Every time I'm adding some tool for SEO, for understanding my audience, for business intelligence. Well, what alternatives would I use to start to get good results with it and still get a lot of profit? So people might think, well, but now you're just using open source, you're not paying anyone. Still, it's not for everyone, right? I had the time, I had the knowledge, and I have the courage, because sometimes I'm like, this is crazy.
This is scary. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, but that was exactly my next question. So, what use cases you wouldn't recommend trying this experiment?
I would say high demanding software, like real-time software, that if something goes down, what happens? Like for me, education, if something goes down, I'm gonna send to students, well, we are off for a few hours, sorry, but it's not a life and death matter, right? So communications, I don't think I would ever spin up something for communications, and even the checkout platform. Payments, I still use a payment gateway because it's crucial, right? Nowadays, if something happens, if my whole infrastructure gets down, what I can do later is I can export the data from the payment gateway or the other platforms and just post-process, and my database is updated, right? So critical systems I wouldn't recommend. However, if you have a team in-house, sometimes I wonder, well, if I had 15 developers available for me to use my ideas, I would do something.
But that would be 15 developers, trust me, are more expensive than whatever bill you paid for the services, right?
But one thing that no one told me, the flexibility with data. I always complain how those marketing platforms worked. Like, let's see, when a student reaches 50% of the progress, I want to send an email and say, well, congratulations. When he reaches like 100%, here's a discount for you so you can keep buying or you keep accessing my platform. Some platforms that I was trying to use, I couldn't use those events for some reason. They won't allow me to actually add filters like SQL. Well, if the user is between 50% and 80%, this is a new segment for me. I want to do that. The platforms I was using couldn't do that. But now, with my own data, I can do whatever I want. I can even go to the source code with AI and say, well, let's implement a custom behavior here. So for me, this blew my mind. I can do whatever I want now, but there's a cost, right? I can do, but I can do a lot of mistakes as well.
exactly. And time.
Exactly.
I would say probably that would be the most significant argument for using services. It's your time. And that's the most costing part of it.
Exactly. But what was my balance for that? I'm a small entrepreneur, so I have to manage campaigns. I have a team for publishing campaigns. I have to record videos. I have to produce content constantly. So I cannot have that much time just for building my own, to actually manage my own.
Exactly,
infrastructure.
exactly, yes.
But it turned out for me, those tools, they are pretty stable. And in the beginning, it was time consuming a bit, but nowadays I don't even touch it. For me, it's like magic. Kubernetes is something that for me, it's one of the best tools ever for our area, because you can say, well, if you have a memory leak there, you can set up, well, this application could not surpass a gigabyte of memory. If it does, kill it and spin up other things. So I realized some applications was misconfigured, and it was just once a day or once a month, it was just restarting. It was like, why? Why did it, like WordPress? I set up poorly a cache for WordPress, and when I got like 10 different users, the CPU was high, but Kubernetes was telling me, I saw it, and it just restart and create a new copy again. So if you have good tools, and I would say open source tools that are pretty, I would say, not popular, but they have a good reputation, I think you're good. But still, it's a risk. Always there's a trade-off, right?
Another question is hardware.
Hardware.
I guess, again, in your use case, which is not super heavily used, I wish it would be one day,
Exactly.
right? You can go by with maybe even consumer hardware or small business hardware.
Exactly.
But the hardware for self-hosting is very, very expensive.
I don't think so. In the end, like VPSs are pretty, but in my case, we're very specific because I was awarded with the Microsoft MVP, and because of that, I have credits every month that I wasn't using. So I was like, well, let's try using those credits. So I spin up the Azure Kubernetes service, and I only pay for disks and the memory usage.
So you do use on cloud services.
Exactly.
I thought you migrated from them.
No. For me, it was like, well, the region I live, once a month we have outage. So everything like I've done like live streams.
You cannot have it in your basement.
Exactly.
Okay.
But it's all installed on my Kubernetes cluster, which is with Azure, and I trust there. So there is a limit. It's not my server here because I had an idea of trying to understand how AIs work by creating my own lab. So I wanted to make a product, and all those requests were routed to my infrastructure. However, I don't have solar panels. I don't have no breaks. So for me, it was like, no, this is enough. Yeah.
yeah. So you self-hosted to a point.
Exactly.
Excellent.
Self-hosted in the cloud. However, there are a lot of pitfalls that you're gonna find in the way, like upgrading tools. This is something that are on my bucket list. But what I noticed, I built the first infrastructure, and for now on, when I have some problem, I can find like consultant person or some developer to work on that as a freelancer. I'm like, wow, please upgrade Maltech for me, and I'm gonna pay him this month. He does that, I just follow the alerts, and that's it. So the whole point for me is do it by yourself in the beginning, and then you start hiring people just to fix here and there because it's just gonna grow.
And then it's one-time expense, and then it's running for free.
Exactly.
Yep.
And it's forever.
Yep.
Like I spent like $200 with a freelancer to set up the alarms for me, for Prometheus, disks, and give me like a consultancy while like, am I doing the Kubernetes configuration correctly? Is it worth it? And then he was like, well, you should change this, and that. I changed it, and it's just working. So it's not a one-man job for all the things. You should actually hire someone to keep improving, right? But still, it's way cheaper than hiring the SaaS platform in my case. Right?
Yeah. Erick, that was wonderful. Very, very insightful.
Thank you so much.
Insightful. I like the balance where it makes sense, where it doesn't. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you so much.
You all keep watching. More Verbose Mode by TaxCare episodes are coming your way right after that. Erick, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Follow me on my YouTube channel, my social media.
Yes,
I'm always publishing
you do that.
content as well. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.